Okay. Well, welcome everyone to SoccerX and our panel, Building for Success in Stadiums and Multi-Purpose Football Venues. Today we're going to be exploring how we can look at venues as more than just serving the game, but also bringing lasting value to communities, to fans, and also to investors. But first, I would like to introduce our panel. We have two architects. One of them is Partho Dutta. He's a senior principal at Populous. He's been there for 25 years, and Populous has designed many of the stadiums that we all love. We have Brad Bartholomew of Labella Associates. He's the design director, and he is working on sports-anchored mixed-use developments on 35 states currently. On the technology front, we have Kevin Vreeland of Veritas. He's the general manager. And Veritas is at the forefront of digital identity verification and biometrics. And last but not least, we'll get the investor's perspective from Kurt Jeske, which is the president of Echo Global, Echo Soccer, who's also leading OKC Energy FC as well. So without further ado, let's start with Partho. Partho, as I mentioned, you had been in Populous for 25 years. What are the trends in fan engagement and community-centered design that you see shaping the future of stadiums right now?
Well, first of all, thank you. It's a privilege to be on this panel and at SoccerX. Well, Populous, over 4 decades, we've designed these venues, and the breadth and depth of experience that we have gained from that work basically has taught us that it is, design is basically fan-focused. You need to focus on the fan. You need to perform those experience audits to be able to create the kind of activation you need for the fan from the moment they step off their bus, car, or train all the way to their seat. So it's very, very important to make sure that the fan feels comfortable, they feel safe, and they have an amazing experience. I think, I have some colleagues here from Populous, and Phil Colbo, he's one of the best examples of fan research. Please, in the audience, if you have an opportunity, please have a chat with him. One of the things that kind of comes out of this experience audit is it allows us to not just develop fans for premium patrons, but also for GA patrons. And that's very important. Like, we're showing this image of Tottenham. And Tottenham has some amazing GA spaces. Like, they have the Goal Line Marketplace, which is basically a very long bar concession stand, which is a fan favorite. Because it allows spectators who come to a soccer event where you only have 15 minutes to buy your concessions and go in, to not miss any part of the game because it's all full of these screens that allow you to see the game. The other thing is to find underutilized spaces in stadiums. For example, that space that you see between the roof and the end of the seating bowl, we've created products that can be housed there. In T-Mobile Arena, we used that whole technique to create a special deck with cantilevered spaces, which any GA patron can go up to that level, enjoy the game. And it's a great way to upsell. But one thing to remember while you're designing these spaces with innovation is always make sure that you check on the CapEx and ROI. So you're not building anything where there's no ROI, so that's very, very important to investors. That's kind of generally the way I would say we approach.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, actually, that's a great segue to the technology front because, as we all know, personalization, customization, big data, and understanding over the long term and the big numbers what the effect of the different things that we do are in the ROI have obviously an implication on how can we actually know who you are, right? And Kevin, so the question for you is, with Veritas being at the forefront of digital ID verification and biometrics, how is this technology really being implemented into stadiums or, the process of getting to the stadium? And also, how is it really improving security and the fan experience?
Yeah, great question. So to build upon, one of the things we went out and started to put entry portals in, right? So trying to tell you who the fan is, get the demographics on the fans that are coming to the event. Because the ticketing systems, right, you had a ticket or you have something that you give to somebody else, they didn't know who that person was. So you could give an ID to a younger, like a ticket to a younger fan, and they would get in, and maybe the interaction is sending them to a private bar, but they're underage. So we started with that concept, but then we learned in soccer, right, what you said, you have 15 minutes between the halves. How do you get people through faster? Mm-hmm. So it's now become, we've now become this fan experience company where we can track the fan starting a little further back or before you get to the stadium. So not even on the bus, but the fan at home that's interacting with the team, you can start to track them coming through, and then you know who's actually showing up. So you can give them that better fan experience. And then during a break, how do you get them a beer faster? How do you get them 2 beers faster? So starting to use facial technology to actually do payments. So you can go to a cooler and pick the beer right out of the cooler and be verified. But now the team knows all this data on that person. So the analytics behind it have become the bigger play into, now. And then how do you disperse from that venue, right, faster? How do we get people away from the venue, especially in congested areas like colleges? They build their venues directly on campus. How do we get the people back out? So we figured out, so it's not even from the venue, it's from the house to the house, right? Home to home. How do we make the experience better for people? And that's where the technologies come in, mostly around using some type of biometrics to do it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And, as architects, we're really seeing how technology and architecture are something that's really meshed together, and we really need to understand what that technology is and how are we going to implement and how does it change the flow and a lot of the design aspects of what we do in stadiums as well. Well, that leads me to you, Brad. With your expertise in sports-anchored mixed-use developments, how do you think from an economic or social aspect that these are affecting how stadiums affect communities? And as well, how might we have a design approach that we can really improve how it integrates into urban settings?
Sure. Well, for us, the focus really on, is as much about, the stadium and sort of the events that take place there. It's actually been more about really designing and building community. So we essentially use sport as kind of that anchor, and we're creating a much larger development. In many cases, the redevelopment of a blighted area. It could also be just something that is, and we'll talk a little bit more about sustainability here, I think, a little later, but even something that is, an environmental concern, or there's some issues with the site and so forth. But what we're able to do is take areas that are in desperate need of both that, that economic driver and that economic redevelopment, but also from the social side of things. So we're really trying to create community. We're using the stadium as something that really anchors that, and then we're have really a plethora of uses that are happening around that within the public realm. Lots of elements of retail, dining, entertainment. Many of the projects, like the one that you're seeing here. This is actually a river in Rhode Island that is very much not in great shape right now, and we're essentially using the stadium as a way to redevelop a riverfront, a river walk that will be a benefit to the community as well. Things like new residential housing that will happen around, in this case, 600 to 700 units we have planned and are actually in design upon. Things like hotel, hospitality, just really the idea of taking an area that's really in need and creating something special, a destination, a place people want to come to, and they want to be, not just during a match, not during an event, but literally 365 days a year, creating a special place for people to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you know, we realize that one of the things that happens with sports-anchored mixed-use development, that it creates that critical mass. It's a catalyst to create a vibrant kind of sports and entertainment type of experience. So we're really seeing that, and it's affecting communities and kind of reactivates everything around it.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, I think, you know, if you look at Battery Atlanta with Twist Park, it's kind of almost like the palimpsest for that kind of development right now. And it's a very, very successful development, exactly like
Right.
you're mentioning. And so that is something that all teams should consider.
That brings us to the next dimension. Let's get a look at this from the investor's perspective. Court, from a venture capital and private equity standpoint, what attracts investors to stadium projects and soccer clubs? Are there specific elements within the stadium design that make them more attractive as an investment?
Yes, thank you all for coming to the panel today. In Oklahoma City specifically, we had a very detailed business plan. That is that we're going to have a stadium, we're going to have a soccer team, and then we're going to get Taylor Swift to start dating one of our soccer players. And that will deliver what we need as a business enterprise and to make it an investable vehicle. In case that doesn't happen, I think what we're going to do is go back to a lot of the things these guys have talked about here. And probably I should add some context. Before this job, I had the chance to found Nashville SC with 3 other investors 8 years ago. And the entire idea was, let's put together a business plan. Let's show the community that it is ready for soccer, right? And there were so many people that said soccer won't work in the South. We're a football state, et cetera, et cetera. But we had a plan, and we went and executed it. Key to any plan here is this stadium and the development that you have. The brick and mortar foundation of any investment is going to be really important for investors to say, I believe in that. I believe in the long-term ability of it. So as we started running our numbers and looking at the opportunity in Oklahoma City, we've got $125 million dedicated from the city. It's actually 71, but there's other mechanisms in place. We've got the chance to redevelop 42 acres downtown, right across the street from where the NBA funders arena is going to be as well. So this is a chance to create what a lot of these guys have talked about. And the end result for our group is that we build a professional soccer club that can stand with any around the world, and also be the first USL club, which is where our men will compete, that is worth $100 million or more. And so that's where we're trying to do all these things in a step process to make sure that we have the returns and the gravitas we need to deliver professional soccer in any market in this country.
Yeah, it has to do a lot with viability. You know, we talk about sustainability a lot when it comes to, you know, stadium designs, everything from, you know, energy consumption, water preservation. But something that's a really important point is from the investor side, the project needs to be viable, and it needs to create long-term value both for the investors, and it's good business. It's a win-win, isn't it? For to invest in something that actually becomes a community hub. It's something that adds value to the community, and what we were talking about with Brad, that actually catalyzes a lot of economic activity in the area.
It's absolutely true, Christian. Key to us is like we're funded by the city of Oklahoma City. So I love this panel has multi-purpose in it. Yes, we are a soccer team, but this is going to be a community center with a field in the middle. Right. Is the way that we approach it, right? It has to get used 365 days a year in order to deliver back on the tenants which the city has given us to help continue to revitalize and grow the amazing movement we have going on in Oklahoma.
So Brad, building off Court's point on long-term value, can you tell us about some of the innovative revenue-generating elements that you see that are gaining popularity in the design of these venues?
Yeah, absolutely. So sort of diving deeper into some of the themes and concepts that we've already been talking about, you know, these facilities are no longer just a place where you kind of park, walk in, go to your seat, have an experience and walk away. It's much more than that, and so we're really starting to not just develop the stadiums in a way that they are multi-use in terms of how they function, but really the spaces all around that. And we talked about some of those uses, but now we kind of dive in even deeper to a stadium like you're seeing here on the screen. What we're really starting to do, we talked a little about just kind of finding those nooks and crannies where you can create a unique experience that potentially was not thought of previously, or was kind of like that throwaway space that wasn't the ideal viewing experience. What we're really focusing on now is really using and leveraging every sort of piece of the stadium that we can to not just be a part of the fan experience and offer unique experiences that really resonate and connect with the community, but also some of these spaces, can be, occupiable, even on non-match days, right? So there's an opportunity, whether it's a club or it's a unique kind of viewing terrace experience, that there's, possible revenue generation from that is hosting a, number of different types of events, even when it's not actually, a soccer match taking place. So these are some of the things that you're seeing that we're working on right now. Not only infusing those kind of aspects to the stadium itself, but also to the sort of the shell that makes up the stadium, and then that has the ability to kind of even further kind of connect with the framework of the overall community as well.
Yeah, I think I would add to that is that a lot of, when you start looking at more like a cross-market strategy, like what is happening in arenas, who have more than 180 days of event days,
Yeah.
How much of that can come into stadiums and vice versa? And then how many of those non-event days can be usable days so you can generate footfall? So, as you're showing this development, and I mentioned Battery Atlanta, those are very, very successful developments that do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as we can see, the things that you brought up and we're seeing back here in this video is, in the end, each stadium needs to be unique in the location. You can't grab a stadium and putting it in a different place.
Very
It's
good
a different
point, yeah.
community, it's a different culture, there's different flavors, there's different things that community demands. And in the end, we think of that as a menu. And then we create, a whole slew of experiences that get placed within the stadium where people can self-segment and pay for what they want to do. Do they want to be, in the supporters section? Do they want to be in a VIP lounge or in the suites? It's difficult to do, but you need to do that R&D and then be able to kind of allow people to self-segment themselves. Now that brings me to something
One more
that
thing, though, I wanted to chime in there. The other part is it really, these facilities and these communities become a reflection of the neighborhood. So we're really trying to, and you were touching on it, but I just kind of want to dive in a little deeper. We start these not by, plopping down, a standard on a site and saying, okay, we'll build it from here. Instead, it's really about understanding the local neighborhood, the supporters, the club, really every aspect that touches the facility and the community, and how we can kind of harness that, understand that, and infuse that so that what we create literally reflects the community, the context, the environment, at its deepest core.
So now we have this huge menu of experiences. The club lounge, the pitch club, a beer garden. There's so many different things. Now, I think it's really exciting when thinking from a technology point of view. How can the technology, identity verification and biometrics and things like that suddenly maybe I can identify who this person is, maybe I have data behind them, and I can then, recommend experience and places and things to do there. How is it that your company is actually working that and improving that fan experience as they flow through these huge menu of options that you have in these stadiums now?
Yeah, so we've had some experiences recently, right? So you have a stadium that's been built, and you have what's called an all-inclusive ticket, right? So you're selling that environment to somebody for, say, $50,000 for the year, right? And their ticket is only used probably about 30% of the time, right? Because they're off doing other things. So they give that ticket to somebody else, but they want the experience to be this. They don't want to give them the same experience, right? So the stadium owners are, wait, the ticket itself is now going to somebody else that's not the person that's registered in my venue, like into my particular spot that I'm trying to give privilege to. They want to be able to sell that to true fans. They want to be able to monetize that. So when you have the capability of understanding the demographics of people that are coming, has their ticket been sold to somebody else? Has it moved elsewhere? I can then take that opportunity to take that open slot at the all-inclusive bar that's on the field, and I can sell that to a premium amount of money to somebody that's a season ticket holder, maybe not a season ticket holder, but I can say to the one person, oh, for another $500, you can sit on the field. And they may take that option if they're a season ticket holder. But maybe to someone that's not a season ticket holder and I go to general release, I'll sell it for $1,000. Removing the capability from Ticketmaster or in other ticketing systems to take that dollar. We've seen it not even from dollars, right? So say a league wants to give away tickets to someone that's in the hospital, right? One of the things that have pissed off most leagues these days is that they give a ticket to charity, and all of a sudden they see that ticket show up on the resale market for $1,000. They weren't looking to give that ticket to someone to make money. They were trying to give someone an experience. So let's move away from a ticket. Let's move to the people and make sure that the person that's associated to that can get into the venue and have that experience, because that's what they're driving towards. And you guys talked about one of the most shocking things to me in the last year as we've kind of built out this whole fan experience from home to home. We learned, right, there are plenty of football stadiums built outside of cities. And when I say football, American football. And they have 28 events, 30 events there. Well, we have the privilege of launching in Argentina at the largest arena in Argentina for soccer. And that venue used 295 times a year. It's the most used stadium in the world. And the reason they moved from a ticketing system to the biometric system is because they want to treat fans slightly different for every way they come in, but seamlessly. So they went away from having to take the tickets and so you have a corporate event going on at one night. I don't want everybody to be handed a ticket. We register the fan through a corporate website, and they get to come in and they get to experience the venue. Now, the venue understands who's there, they can understand what happens, and then the analytics behind that allows them to utilize that to say, all right, the next time I have this corporate event, maybe not the same corporate, but I understand the type of people that came, so I can make sure that the venue is set up the right way for them. So the food that's offered, right? So how do I get the right food? How do I get the right beverage to the individual that's showing up based on the event that they're coming from? And their ROIs are starting to go up. And it's just allowing fans to have the experience, but also giving the investors a lot of more understanding of what's going on, because it's not tracking a ticket, it's tracking the person.
Can you also talk about the security aspect of it? We had a very fascinating conversation just before the panel.
Yeah, so in Chile, if anybody is from Chile and tries to buy tickets to go to a soccer event in Chile, there's a fan registration system in Chile because of what you've seen down there in the minor matches where people were causing problems. So they want to ban people. And the way it's been banned elsewhere is they ban people by taking their mobile phone. So in the UK, when they try to track you, if you've been banned, they track you by a mobile phone. Well, that's easy to get rid of, right? Just leave the phone at home, get a ticket from somebody else, walk into the venue. So in Chile, what they've done is they said enough's enough. So you register to have the privilege to buy tickets down there. You have to register in their system. They use their national voter ID card. They use the face to match it against that voter ID card. And they verify that ID number is a valid number. So you can't make fake documents. And they've caught the same guys that have caused major harm to people trying to get into stadiums. In their last national event, they had 4 people that they banned, and they at least tried to get in through the system 10 different ways to try to get tickets to the national game. And they're banned for life. And it's because they've done harm with the flare or something along that lines. We're not telling people that they can't come in where the venue is doing that. We're just recognizing who they are and saying this person needs to be stopped.
Yeah, one of the ways I like to look at it and to simplify it is that, you know, we all have digital lives, and when you look at us doing things online, obviously we have a login and a username, and you know that's how they know who we are. Or otherwise, you have an IP address on your computer, and we're seeing it. There's big data analytics behind. They see our behavior. We go to Amazon.com. They suggest things for you to do. So you're kind of customizing and personalizing people's experiences. The missing link in the real world is how do we know who you are, and that's where computer vision and facial recognition, biometrics and things like that become very important. So let's move to sustainability and community impact. Partho, as sustainability becomes paramount, how is Populous addressing environmental considerations in stadium design, and are there recent examples where you've achieved net positive impact for both the venue and its surrounding community?
Yeah, well, thanks for that question. It's actually very important, especially in this state, which just saw some devastating effects. One example that I want to give is Tropicana Field, and as we all know, they were all designed to the right standards, the right bylaws, and so on and so forth. But the kind of climate change and the impacts that we are seeing far exceed that, right? One of the things that Populous has done is we have made an inherent investment in sustainability. We have a global head of sustainability, Mohit Mehta, and under him, we have heads of the various regions, and they're basically sustainability principals who work closely with all the design teams who affect each of our stadium designs. This has helped us affect the designs and the sustainability goals much more effectively. As a result, we have a product like this, which is Climate Pledge Arena. And Climate Pledge Arena is in Seattle. It's the first net zero venue in the world, stadium in the world. But one thing I must impress, the reason why we could achieve that was because all the stakeholders, it's not just the architects, but the ownership, the city, the state, they were all kind of wanting that benchmark, and that's how we could achieve it. So that's on the Populous side, but I think the main thing we need to kind of emphasize on sustainability is, see, our previous goals for sustainability used to be decarbonization, right? So as long as you achieved a certain LEED level, you would decarbonize a certain amount, and that was okay. But with the impact that we're seeing of climate change, we also need to make our buildings resilient. So resiliency is a huge piece of the sustainability piece. As you know, a lot of our stadiums and arenas, they're being used for disaster relief, and a lot of the emergency teams are actually residing in these stadiums to provide relief. So we need to work with state governments, with city governments to see how much of that funding can come to our stadiums, as well as being more effective in providing resiliency.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, we're seeing it with global warming and hurricanes and so forth. I think that as communities and governments become aware of this, they begin to realize that it's less expensive to invest in it today rather than go for the Band-Aid when there's actually a crisis and it's very difficult and expensive to address. So as we move forward, probably there's going to be many incentives both for insurance companies but also of governments to actually invest and create funds which will facilitate and kind of subsidize the implementation of a lot of these different efforts that we need to do.
I think that's a very good point. With the kind of things that we are facing that we're seeing in Florida and in California, insurance companies are basically reacting to that, and they're basically raising the rates not just for those places, but for everyone, right? And we're going to face this, and unless we take this challenge on.
And like everything else, you need to have a long-term perspective and make smart decisions based on that. Which brings me to you, Court. How important is it for the investment sector, for investors, the idea that stadiums and these facilities are sustainable? And are there any specific innovations that you think are attracting investors more than others?
Yeah, I think adding on to what you said is I think about some of those elements in the stadium and how are they not only investable but sponsorable. right? I'm in a state that is historically oil and gas driven, like much of the American Southwest. So these people aren't dummies, right? They've made billions and billions of dollars, but they know the direction is toward renewables, right? And that is the future. And so they're looking for ways to show through their investment, oh, well, let's help invest in solar panels on the roof, or making sure that the field is the most sustainable renewable material that it can be, et cetera. So it can be a good business decision today, as well as for the future. Going back to the sustainability piece long term, I think of it in a couple ways, and I think about it from an efficiency standpoint. So the way that we can be good stewards in Oklahoma City to the 1.5 million people in our market, or the 4 million people in the state, is making sure that we get the best use out of the public funding that we have. And that goes back to the 365 days a year of programming that we're going to endeavor for, because that frees up future tax dollars and sustainable living dollars for other initiatives the city has, like schools, education, roads, you name it, things that are really important. I think we have an embarrassment of riches for stadiums in this country. I think we can all agree we're very, very fortunate. A World Cup bid that I worked on years ago showed that we had 80 stadiums of 60,000 seats or more, which is just an amazing number if you think about college, NFL, et cetera. Many of those were used for less than 20 main events a year. So how do we think more sustainable about the venues we're building from a utility standpoint that make sure those resources go not only to effectuate today, but also go further with the dollars that are being spent?
That makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that I always think about is when you're investing in a team, one of the big risks that you have in building the stadium is the community kind of being against it and saying, here comes this big stadium and it's going to be privately owned and it's going to have tons of noise and light coming out of it.
I think everyone would be for it all the time.
Exactly. So I think that when investors, even with their investor hat on, suddenly realize, hey, this community cares about this. This is an issue which is affecting all of us, and they care about it, and suddenly we see that there's an investment in a stadium that actually is going to be sustainable. It's going to be a community hub. It's going to be a place where if something actually happens, we can have the emergency systems there ready for it. And then also building the brand, you need to build the brand. That brand needs to absorb the brand equity that you're communicating. If that is, I care about the community, I care about the environment, and it lines up with the values of who they are, in the end, it's going to be good for the investors as well in the long term. And that leads me to the final wrap-up question, and I'm going to lead it to you, Brad. So what are your thoughts on the next wave of innovation in stadium design, and what are some of the design trends or concepts that might redefine stadiums in the next decade?
Well, I think we've been talking about a lot of them, throughout the panel, but, just kind of to reiterate and maybe bring to light, highly customizable, focused on fan experience and also community engagement, sustainable. You can kind of see the images that are flashed on the screen here. None of these things are looking the same. We're not dropping down the same stadium in every location. So it's very much about understanding how we can, create a revenue generator for the club, for the community, something that, reflects what the community not just is and has been, but wants to be. We're actually doing some really cool projects that are looking to the past to inform the future as well, right? So instead of, again, speaking to sustainability, we could be in a site that has this proud historical kind of context about it, and there would be probably a period of time and even a thought or consideration that the cheapest thing we could do would be to mow it down and build new, but instead we're finding ways to actually repurpose some of those buildings so that the stadium of the future, I think, is adaptable, and it's something that we can sort of, whether it's in an urban condition or it's something that's not quite as urban and tight, it still has the ability to kind of use some of those existing resources, a way of kind of promoting not just sustainability, but also a celebration of a proud community or history or past. So I think, it's really exciting is what the future is, and it's, probably why all of us, up here sit with smiles, because it's something that we're passionate about, and, something that we think we have the sort of the privilege, the honor to shape, not just what these facilities will look like, but literally the communities across, the states and the world, for that matter, kind of how that will proceed.
No, I think I would like to add that if you just look at the stadium and all the components, it's got training facilities, it's got, premium spaces, restaurants, so on and so forth. All of those could have non-game name uses, and mainly for the community. My friend David Hodge, who's here, he's one of the folks who's worked on a lot of training facilities for the community and so on and so forth. So I think there are programs in there that could be used for the wider community, and then that's how we should engage the fans and the community into the stadium, ensuring football.
I think I'll add to what they said, and we've been talking about, yes, it's a stadium, it's brick and mortar, but we've all been talking about experiences.
No, for sure.
Right, memories. We're all in the business of sports entertainment. We're selling memories, right? That's what we are. So making the most seamless, the safest, the best environment, the best experience inside, that's what a stadium is, right? It's a 2-hour or longer window of an experience that you're selling, and you have to sell it over and over and over again. So I think it's, like you said, we're blessed to be able to do this. Very fortunate.
Yeah, I think we all agree that it's a really remarkable moment in time to be doing stadium architecture. We're seeing that we have such a strong focus on not just designing an amazing building, right? It's in designing something that's going to have a huge impact on the community. It needs to be a wonderful fan experience, and as well, we need to attract investors, and we're doing that in very creative ways as well. Well, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for your insights, and we can have a round of applause for the amazing panel. Excellent.